Hi, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, Swoon-Worthy, where we discuss movies and TV series set in different time periods. I'm here today with my sister, Kayla. My name is Carly, and we're excited to talk about a really beautifully made period drama today. The movie is called Belle. It's from 2013. And no, this is not about Beauty and the Beast, Belle. This is a different Belle you may or may not have heard of. Kayla, had you heard about this movie before we watched it recently?
No, I've never heard of this woman or this movie or anything.
Yeah, but now it's fascinating to learn about her. And the movie does have some historical inaccuracies. We will probably touch on a few of those, but we always encourage people to do their own research, of course. The movie itself has stunning costumes, a fantastic cast, and it flows. It's got good music. I think it's just a really good period drama. And they're actually basing it off of a painting, a life, this historical figure, Belle. Not much is known about her life. And so the creators of the movie did do a little bit of guesswork and really try to make it a nice movie. So that's a little bit of a preface. So the movie was directed by Ama Asante, written by Misan Sage, and produced by Damian Jones. It stars this beautiful actress, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, and you may have seen her in things. She was actually in Beauty and the Beast. She played Plumette in the live action Disney's Beauty and the Beast. And she's been in so many things. And Kayla, guess what? We've seen this actress in real life.
Huh?
Do you remember when we went to see Hamlet on the West End?
Yeah.
We went to London with our family and a friend. We saw Jude Law as Hamlet, and she played Ophelia. So
Oh,
we've seen this actress on the stage. We just didn't know who she was.
I thought she looked familiar.
There you go. She's just so beautiful. And she's been in other period dramas. So I also want to mention that the costume designer, Anushya Niradzik, did such a phenomenal job with this costume. It's eye candy, really. There's a lot of pastels, a lot of beautiful gowns worn by the main actress in her character role as Belle, but then also Sarah Gadon. She is a Canadian actress who plays her cousin, almost like a sister in this. And seeing the two of them in their beautiful late 1780s gowns, I don't know, I really get it. I just love watching them. And so we'll talk about the costumes and we'll talk about the movie, the plot itself. So let's get into it. Okay, so the movie starts out in 1769 and we see a little girl who looks like she's not in the best living conditions, and a Royal Navy captain comes in, and it's Matthew Good, who is a, you know,
Very swoon-worthy.
very swoon-worthy, always just in period dramas. We love him. He's only in the movie, fair warning, spoiler alert, for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It's a shame. We learn this is his daughter and takes her back to his family back in England in Hampstead. Kenwood House, I believe, is the house name. And you can see he's going to leave her there because he has to go back to his Navy job or whatnot. And but he didn't want her to be just kind of stranded out there. It sounds like the mother died in this story, even if that wasn't what really happened. Yeah, there's definitely some historical inaccuracies, but I think talking about the movie is what we want to do. Side note. Okay. And we see Tom Wilkinson. Also, he's in everything. That actor who plays Matthew Good's uncle in this. What have we seen him in?
The Patriot.
Yes, The Patriot. What else is he in?
A lot. Oh, he was in The Girl with the Pearl Earring.
Oh, that movie. I haven't seen that in a while, but I think he's actually an Oscar um, nominated actor. And then we see Penelope Wilton, who, of course, is from Downton Abbey and Pride and Prejudice. She's in the mix. And then Emily Watson, who is a fantastic period drama actor. So we have all these great people in the room here. But we learned that the daughter's going to be left alone. And he says at the end, like, just remember you are loved. So it's a very sweet character in the movie. But I know, Kayla, we've done a bit of research afterwards. And
Yeah. I like to think of this movie as fictional based off of this painting, but it's definitely fiction.
it is. And we don't know so much about her life because not a lot was recorded. So they kind of filled in the gaps. Kayla, it reminds me of when we were talking about the Elizabeth movie, actually, with Kate Blanchett. They kind of went all over the place with the plot, but you still get the spirit of Elizabeth. So hopefully, we're getting the spirit of this beautiful person, Belle, or Dido Elizabeth Belle. And she gets to meet her little cousin. And with this story, her mother was a slave and captured on a from a British ship, and definitely some questionable things may have happened, but
She ended up having Belle.
yeah, Belle with this Navy captain, and she was a biracial British gentlewoman who this is kind of unheard of in aristocratic families at this time period. So it's a it's a crazy story. It's unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even though there was a lot of, you know, hard things I'm sure she had to go through, I think that her family really loved her and cared for her. And, it was a hard time for that situation, but I think they did the best they could at that time.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'd like to think so. And that's the whole thing with the painting. So this painting is so unique because it has the two cousins, Dido Elizabeth Belle and Elizabeth Murray, and they're shown as pretty relatively close equals. So they're next to each other. Their clothing is a little different. They're both wearing pearl necklaces. Belle is standing up while Elizabeth Murray is seated, but she has her arm kind of on her as a companion. And that's the thing, they were shown more as companions instead of like Belle or Dido, as she sometimes referred to as being a servant or a lady's maid. So it's very unique. Okay, so back to the movie. I love the scene where they're just little girls playing the two cousins, and then they kind of go around the tree, and it's the older actresses now. I thought that was cute,
mhm.
the way that was done. And I love their dresses just from the start. So we have Belle wearing a white gown with some floral print, and Elizabeth Murray is wearing an orangey kind of smaller floral print. You got to pay attention to the colors that the two girls wear in the movie. So Belle's usually wearing pink and some blue, and then we have Elizabeth wearing orange a lot. And if you look at period dramas, Kayla, I feel like oftentimes the side character, like the secondary female character, wears orange.
Why?
I don't know. I've done like a series of posts once on Instagram, my at period drama style Instagram. They always put the secondary character in orange.
That's weird. I love
And
I love orange.
yeah, sometimes even the villains are in orange.
Oh, what are you trying to say?
Well, there are some moments in this one where her character is kind of getting a little angry or jealous, but most of the time it's a sweet relationship between the two girls. They're like sisters, but no, I'm just mentioning, yeah, orange is always like a secondary character, and then the primary female character is usually in pink or blue.
Well, now I want to make a period film and have it just be all orange everywhere and
There you
celebration of orange.
go. I like that. Yeah. So they're definitely young. They're about 18. And I believe they were 18 around that age when the painting was done,
Mhm.
commissioned for them. They're living in the house of their great uncle, the Lord Chief Justice, who was, this is the Tom Wilkinson character, the highest judge in the land. So, like, at one point, they even say he's considered probably the most powerful man in the country other than the king.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's just a very unique situation to have two great nieces under your care, under your guardianship. And the dynamic is interesting to see on the screen.
The Lord of the
The
Land.
Lord of the Land. All right. And so they're kind of at that age where they're maybe going to come out into society. They're going to start to be married off, right? So all of a sudden there's like three young men that come into the picture for young Belle and Elizabeth Murray. So we have Tom Felton and James Norton. Go ahead.
Good old Draco.
We have, yes, young Draco Malfoy playing another villainous role.
I mean, that's his bread and butter.
He is good. However, I did like him as a little boy in, what was that movie? Uh, it's based off The King and I, but it's Anna and the King. He's such a cute little boy in that one. And James Norton, Kayla, I'm kind of a huge James Norton fan. Like, I don't know, something about him. I used to watch the Grantchester BBC series, and he's in Little Women 2019. He marries Emma Watson's character. And War and Peace, he plays Prince Andre. Yeah, I'm a big fan of James Norton. And so they're brothers and they're brought into the room with Belle. Oh, we have to mention Belle, our star character. She can't have dinner with her family. What is that about?
Yeah. Well, I was watching some footage about her, and had less. It said the historians say it has less to do with prejudice
Mm-hmm.
and more to do with her illegitimacy.
Right, because her father and mother never married, whereas the cousin Elizabeth, her parents were married at one point, so she was legitimate. And yeah, okay, I gotcha. But either way, so Belle is neglected at dinner time, but then she can join the ladies in the drawing room after, kind of thing, which
Mm.
is interesting. But she kind of catches the eye of James Norton's character, but then Tom Felton's character is just like not nice, we should say. They play the piano, the two cousins, the two girls, and they kind of do it where Elizabeth Murray is not as good at the piano and Belle is, you know, very skilled at the piano. um, and then you see a little maybe jealousy from the cousin, but they kind of end it there. And then there's another man that kind of comes into the picture. So this lawyer to be, John Divinier, played by Sam Reed. If you've seen Interview with the Vampire, the latest series, he's handsome. I think he's very swoon-worthy, the love interest. But in real life, Kayla, he wasn't even a lawyer. This guy,
Oh, really? What was he?
like a valet. I know. So they did take so many liberties. Anyways, the movie's romantic in that they kind of keep running into each other, having serious conversations about what's going on with this big case of uh, this huge case, which is called the Zong Massacre. And this is like a serious plot point in this. So, have to talk about this. There was a slave ship, okay, human cargo ship, they sometimes call it. And um, this is a tough subject. So, the crew of this ship, they murdered all the slaves on the ship.
Wasn't it for like insurance?
Yeah. So they they basically drowned the slaves and they wanted to get the insurance money. And
It's terrible.
it's absolutely disgusting. And it went to it went to the courts in the UK, and they almost had the insurance company almost had to pay the crew and the investors of the ship, but it went to the Supreme Court. So it kind of got pushed up to where Belle's father, or I'm sorry, Belle's guardian, this Lord Chief Justice, had to take the case, and it went to the highest courts essentially. And there we learned, spoiler alert at the end, that they did not have to pay. That aside, the whole morality of the whole case is just
Do
unbelievable.
you think that because of Bell and his life that influenced his decision?
I think there that is perhaps a true point, more historical. I think people did point that out. I mean, he had a human being in his care. He was guardian of this little girl who grew up to be a young woman who was a descendant, of slavery. And yeah, and he
He saw them as the humans that they were and not just as property.
yes. One of my favorite quotes from the movie, and this is from the love interest, the John Davinia character, is human beings cannot be priced since we are priceless. And that message is carried across throughout the movie. Yeah, it's a serious subject. We haven't really tackled a subject like this in our podcast. I want to be sensitive to it, but I think this movie handles it beautifully, and it makes you think, and it makes you research. And Kayla, I think there was that one scene when we were watching it together that you said you felt it really impactful. You felt was really impactful when she's upset by the color of her skin and she's kind of sitting in front of the mirror.
Yeah, she was kind of just because that's like literally the only thing holding her back in that society and making her being to be treated so differently is the color of her skin. And she's just kind of, she was like kind of just pulling her skin, like, why was I born this way? And it's so sad because it's just silly, the whole like that she's treated that
Right.
way.
Right, because she was given an education. She was,
She was very intelligent.
yeah,
She was probably smarter than most of the women that she was surrounded all the time.
yeah,
But she was treated so poorly just because of the color of her skin.
yeah. No, that's a very, very amazing scene done by Gugu and Raw. This is a happy story in the end, so we'll get to that. Okay, and in this one too, her father dies. Matthew Good's character. Spoiler alert. I would say that too late. Um, and she's left money, and she becomes this heiress in this plot point. But I don't think that was actually in reality what happened. Yeah, they
Mm.
definitely changed things around a bit. And now it's a matter of, can she marry? Because she's kind of at that point where her cousin is going to go out into society and try to get a husband. Can Belle marry? And the thing is, there was a part in the movie where they talked about a higher classed gentleman may not propose to her, but then a lower class gentleman that would bring down her rank. So she couldn't marry lower than her. And for a moment there, they don't think that she can marry above her station. But James Norton's character goes for her and is sweet somewhat. He's kind of like borderline sweet. What do you think about that? Did you think his feelings were true?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think he liked her, but he still was a bit ignorant in some of his comments to her, and it's like he didn't appreciate the other side of her because he referred to uh her Caucasian side as the better half, which is just so insulting to like your
Yeah.
other part of your heritage, like of who you are. So she just that was definitely a turn off for her, I think.
Yeah. And I think he was somewhat, like you said, somewhat sincere, but he wasn't there. He wasn't there for her fully.
Yeah.
And he even proposes, and the proposal's not bad. It wasn't like Mr. Collins bad, but it was the Pride and Prejudice reference. But
I thought it
it
was funny in the movie because she's like, I cannot, and she's like, I cannot, and then she's like, cannot think of anything more wonderful.
yeah, and the aunts are listening at the door because they're like excited for her, like, okay, she's gonna marry a gentleman. Um, which they didn't think was gonna happen. But that marriage probably wasn't the best choice for her, as we will learn. And her cousin, is definitely jealous because in this movie context, she doesn't have as much money and she's kind of forgotten by her father. And she's kind of going for Tom Felton's character, but once he learns that she doesn't have money, he dismisses her in true Draco style. Oh, and then there's that scene where Belle and Oliver Ashford are engaged, and then Tom Felton's character, I can't even think of his name, he he really acts horribly to Belle in private. What was that about again?
I mean, I have a theory. I think he secretly was like attracted to her and kind of liked her, but he's such a terrible person that he wanted to just like a little child, like sometimes if a kid has a crush on someone, they'll hurt them or pick on them.
Yeah.
I feel like he's just immature and stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Total villain though. He kind of manhandles her and hurts her, and Belle doesn't even feel comfortable telling that to her cousin, her sister until later when she's kind of thinking like, "Oh, I'll marry him."
Yeah, she's like, because she was like, "Oh, I'll give you some of my inheritance as dowry," and she's like, "Oh, great, I'll use it with this guy," and she's like, "Oh, no, 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 I didn't mean him."
Yeah, exactly. I also remember with the character of Elizabeth Murray, played by Sarah Gadon, you liked her costumes a lot because of the orange in some of these scenes.
Hmm.
And some of the costumes in this movie, including also Belle's like fuchsia, magenta, pink gowns, these are recycled movie costumes.
Oh.
And I feel like there's like a handful of movies that all use the same costumes. And so I'm going to list them out now. And if you want to look at the pictures, it's really kind of fun. So The Duchess with Keira Knightley, 2008. Okay. And then we have Dangerous Liaisons, okay, with Glenn Close. Harlots, the TV show, and A Royal Affair with Alicia Vikander. So if you check out some of these costumes and you think they look familiar, it's because they were all used by these movies, and it's almost like connecting the dots. It's really kind of cool. But I love Belle's dresses, so just a little more on the costumes. The light pink, I think Kayla, you and I noticed her bracelets are always so pretty,
Hmm.
which is a detail you don't always get in period dramas. Oh, I love always the pearl necklaces with the little ribbon tied in the back because their hair's up. This is a movie where they really did well with the hairstyling as well. And it's always up, very appropriate. And so you get to see some of the details of the jewelry and the backs of the dresses. There's a scene where they're at the piano, the two girls, and one of them's wearing a pretty blue and one of them's wearing a pretty pink. And I think you mentioned it reminded you of Sleeping Beauty Aurora.
Hmm.
Kayla, remind us again, are you team blue or pink for Aurora?
Team Blue all the way.
And see, I like pink.
Yeah. Mm.
Which podcast were we talking about that? Was it the Cinderella one?
Yeah, it had to have been.
Yeah.
So go back and listen to the Cinderella podcast. It was one of our, was it like our third or fourth
It
one?
was our fourth one. It's our mom's favorite.
I love it.
We talked about Ever After, Cinderella with Brandy, and Cinderella with Lily James.
Yeah, it's a good time. Check it out.
All right. So back to the story. All of this time, there's, a couple things happening. There's the portrait of the two girls being commissioned. There's the Zong case. And this is when she starts sneaking out. So she's kind of engaged to this Oliver Ashford character. She even walks with him at Vauxhall, which is a really cool um, place that's in period dramas all the time. It's kind of where men and women could go and flirt, and it was a little bit, I don't know how
It
to
was
describe
a
it.
bohemian, maybe
Ooh,
early signs of the bohemian renaissance.
yeah.
Vanity Fair.
Vanity Fair, it's in Poldark, it's in Bridgerton too, I think, maybe. But yeah, it was kind of like there were pleasure gardens there. There were like people throwing fire.
Well, because they were so structured and strict on in the society, and then it was like a place where you could just kind of let loose and explore.
Yes. And I love that scene where she sees this John Divinier character who she's been kind of having some flirtations with, and they're trying to escape notice of someone, and they kind of end up getting close to each other and almost kissing, but you can just tell they're into each other. And but it's not only that, like they're into each other's minds too, and they're learning from each other because he's trying to be a lawyer, she's trying to learn more about the world. And then in London, they start kind of sneaking off together and taking walks. And Belle always wears these like beautiful little capes to kind of, because she's incognito a little bit. There's a dark purple cape and like a pretty blue cape with a coral fabric on the inside. It's just, I love it. And you learn that he really respects her. Like he likes her mind as well as her beauty. he he thinks of her as a whole human, both sides of her mother and her father's, backgrounds, and you're really rooting for this character even though she's engaged to another man. And then she's been sneaking off, but of course her great uncle notices, and at one point he's hiding in the carriage waiting for her to do her little sneaky thing, and then the Divinier character gets in the carriage with him, and there's some shouting and all that. But eventually he comes around, and I think he sees that there's a love there. And there's a scene also where he's talking to his wife, played by Emily Watson, and he kind of realizes, I do love her. I do want what's best for her. And he they break off the engagement. They let Belle break off the engagement with James Norton's character, Oliver Ashford. So she's free from that. So the really towards the end of the movie, there's a lot of talk about the case, and they even discover that the whole argument by the crew of the ship was that they ran out of food and water, and they that was their reason for murdering the slaves on the ship, was to preserve and save the food and water for themselves, I guess. But what they learn is that they could have stopped at various points on their journey to replenish their supplies. So they really can't base it on that. So I think in the movie they say, oh, perhaps the slaves were kept in horrible conditions and developed sickness. And so rather than,
Well, yeah, I mean, so I think that was why they did it. They didn't just do it for the heck of it. Like they got sick, and so they, in order to collect insurance on them, the slaves, right?
Mhm,
They
right.
they they pretended like they fell in there and drowned.
I don't think they pretended they fell in there and drowned. They claimed that they needed the food and water for
Oh,
themselves. They
okay.
kind of masterminded this plan rather than arriving at their destination with the slaves being sick and not able to be sold. It's really disgusting. And I guess the silver lining is this was the early stages of the abolitionist movement. And this case was, a huge case in the UK, and it brought some serious issues to the attention of people who ended up fighting for the abolition of slavery. And so it kind of paved the way for that. I mean, it's a horrible atrocity. And there's another good movie, Kayla, called Amazing Grace, and it has Johan Grufford in it, who we love from Titanic and 102 Dalmatians, and Romola Garai, who we love, and Emma and all of that. And it's about the song Amazing Grace, but also about um, the the historical figure, Wilberforce, who really helped with the abolition of slavery in the UK.
Cool.
So I definitely recommend that movie. It's called Amazing Grace. And I saw it in theaters a long time ago. I need to rewatch it. but it's from 2006. William Wilberforce, that's who it is. Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of these movies that are set in the same time period, they really don't talk about the slave trade. So contemporaries of this movie and of these historical figures, The Duchess, 2008, starring Keira Knightley, because it sounds like Elizabeth Murray, the cousin, was friends with Georgiana, Duchess of Devonshire, in real life.
Oh.
Yeah. And we also talked about a little bit how that Mansfield Park adaptation, the Jane Austen adaptation, they touch on slavery and the slave trade a bit, but they don't really go too in depth here. But I think this movie, while it has historical inaccuracies, it makes you think, it makes you research. Yeah, I think it's a well-made movie. And in the end, we have the right outcome from the case. So the insurers win, the crew of this horrible ship, they don't get rewarded for the atrocity that they committed, the crime they committed. And we have a lovely, happy ending romantically because you have Belle and John Divinier um, getting engaged. They're going to get married. And I love at the end where Belle says to him, I love you for all that you are and for all that I am. So it's really like she's also finally accepted herself, all of herself. She's not trying to hide anything. She's found someone who respects her as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Where does this portrait reside?
Yeah, let's talk about the portrait because they show the movie version of the portrait in the movie. And then at the very end of the movie, they show the real portrait. So the painting was completed in 1779 and it's by a Scottish portraitist, David Martin. Okay. And for a long time, it was in the main house at Kenwood House, the house that we're seeing in this movie. But then it was moved in the 1920s to Scotland. It's a house called Scone Palace. Yeah. In Perth, Scotland. And that's where Lord Mansfield, I believe, was born and died. So it still resides with the family home, essentially, one of the ancestral homes. It's beautiful. I would love to see this in real life.
Well, we're taking our trip to Scotland and Ireland. We can go check it out.
There you go. Let's go to Perth.
I thought that was Australia.
I think there
Okay.
is a Perth, Australia. Um, yeah. And definitely encourage you to look at the two paintings, the one from the movie and the one from real life. It's beautiful to see how they captured the essence of it, but they did do some differences. Of course, actress faces, um, of course, the actresses' faces are there in the movie version.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like in Marie Antoinette.
Yes, kind of like Marie Antoinette, exactly. And I think it's pretty.
Yeah, it's a nice romantic movie to watch. Just keep in mind it's not accurate at all. And
They downplay a lot of the truth.
yeah, I mean, maybe watch the movie before you do research into the truth because it's kind of sad.
It is sad, but you got to think, I don't know, I think that
It's just not, the movie's not about what happened to Maria, not Maria. The movie's not about what happened to to Belle's mother, which is very
yeah,
unfortunate.
yeah,
It's about, her Belle's life after her father passed away, and about the painting and her, the people that are really became her real family and cared about her.
right. Right. And the times were very different. And I'm sure there was struggles even within the family dynamic and how society treated her. But I'd like to believe that she was loved in real life. She found love with her husband. They had kids.
It's wonderful.
Okay, Kayla. So what were your favorite costumes, or did you have a favorite costume from the movie worn by either of the girls?
I mean, I like both of their orange dresses they wore kind of in the middle of the movie. Well, one of them was more orange than the other that Elizabeth wore, but Belle wore kind of, it was like a brownish kind of dress and was shiny,
It was like crinoline.
but
It
it had like an
was,
orange undertone.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those are my
Maybe a
favorite.
peachy. Yeah.
What was yours?
And so wait, the orange one that you liked, but that Elizabeth, was it the one with the dark green kind
Hmm.
of skirt and like the little flowers?
Yeah.
And Keira Knightley wears that one
Hmm.
in The Duchess. I love this one gown that Belle wears. It's almost like a purple blue. It looks more purple in some light, and it has little pink trimmings. And I'll post it on Instagram, of course, but I think it's just so pretty because if I had, okay, if I were to wear like a historical costume, I would want it to be like a purple. And you don't always see a pretty, well made purple gown.
Hmm.
This one's it. And I think even the older women in the movie, so Penelope Wilton's character, and oh gosh, we didn't even talk about the mom of the two Ashford boys, played by Miranda Richardson, who she is like, she's so good in villainous roles. Sleepy Hollow, even the young Victoria. She's just so good. But so she's an older woman in the movie, and then Emily Watson. They even give beautiful costumes to these, more maternal figures in the movie, which I don't think you always get in period dramas. They kind of put them to the side, but they really wear some beautiful gowns as well. So that's a bit about the costuming. And I think that brings our podcast episode to conclusion. So thank you all for joining us, talking a little bit about the movie Belle from 2013, starring Gugu Mbatha-Raw, a British actress, beautiful actress. I really just, yeah, can't tell you enough how much I love this movie and encourage you all to watch it. You can find it on YouTube for free often. It was on Disney Plus at one point. Take a look. And I can't wait to just talk more period dramas with you all for our season 3 of Swoon-Worthy. So stay tuned for more. We'll catch you next time.